Today, I get to go look at a house that needs to be torn down. And I thought, what a great time to talk a little bit about the barrier of cost when it comes to getting started on your off-grid property. And I say getting started, and I say off-grid, doesn't have to be off-grid, but getting started is important because for a lot of folks out there, we know that budget is one of their primary restraining factors, is just money. And so I thought I would just share a little bit about some of the things we've learned so far on this journey and how we have found there's an abundance of good materials available that you do not have to buy at retail cost. This little cabin right here, we actually built in 3 days. And the total cost of this entire cabin, it's 10 by 12, was $300. And the majority of that cost was these clear polycarbonate panels. And I think those panels were probably 150 bucks. We did that because we wanted some sort of passive solar. That little cabin is actually made from materials that we reclaimed by tearing down a barn and a house nearby. One evening we were doing laundry, we were bored, so Alyssa was on Craigslist and suddenly found this opportunity. The house was gonna be torn down in 4 days. So even though we were exhausted, we grabbed all of our tools, went out there, we paid $300 total for the entire barn and house. We received metal roofing, windows, cladding, beams, posts, lumber, all kinds of stuff. We actually did a video on that. I'll link to that video, I think it's over here. And you can learn how to make crazy amounts of money just reclaiming materials. One word of caution though, and that's part of what I want to share in this video today is, once you realize that there's a ton of materials out there, you're gonna learn something new, and that's when to be picky about what to spend your time and energy getting. Our little lumber yard over here, which we try to keep tidy, it's a little bit challenging because we're always digging through it, rummaging for different things, is actually, again, more materials that are left over from that barn and house that we tore down. So we still have all of these materials, and we're able to build a cabin out of it. That little woodshed that you see over there, that little guy was actually built from more of these materials. So that little woodshed cost us $0, and it holds all of the wood for our wood-fired hot tub. This little cabin is kind of a post and beam type structure. So these cedar posts right here, or beams or whatever you want to call them, were all actually part of this original structure. And they weren't in the best of condition, but we trimmed them to length we kind of made a decision about what we could build using the materials we had, and that's how the dimensions of the cabin came into existence. But all of this cedar cladding that you see, we took off of that house. This sheet metal that we used to go around the chimney came out of that house. All of this material was all part of that project. And I guess I want to lay this to rest. This is not air, people. This is foil on insulation. So for those of you folks who are blind and cannot tell that the gaps in the wood are actually showing the insulation, thank you. Please stop messaging us that we have leaky walls. That's insulation, which was also reclaimed from that structure. This not so sexy metal door we actually found by posting a bulletin around town, and somebody had a bunch of materials from taking down a deck. So this door cost us $0. Over here we keep a lot of our other building materials. So we have some of our wide metal roofing, which we have very limited amounts of, so that's why we chose to use it for oddball projects. We don't have enough to do anything of substantial size. We have a bunch of softening material. Again, it's kind of random, not a lot of the same material, so not enough to do a whole project, but for little things like our battery box, this stuff is perfect. And then we have the mother load of tin roofing. All of this roofing we got off that single house and single barn. Now, not all of it's super usable. There's some odd angle cuts and whatnot, but the amount of long, straight, high quality tin roofing that we got is plenty. And those bricks back there were actually something that we got from a contractor who had torn down a 1900 something chimney, and they were just laying in his yard. Those bricks cost us maybe $100, and we actually had about that many bricks to start with, and we've since used them for all kinds of things, including that set of stairs that you see leading up to the hot tub. Those all have brick inlay. So just to reinforce, there's a ton of material out there that folks are getting rid of, they have laying around the house. What you can't see is the storage unit that we have that is chock full of windows, travertine, sinks, electrical, outlets, all of this stuff that we also got. So there's a ton of it available. But like I said earlier, the biggest challenge then is learning what to get, because you'll realize it's a ton of effort to pick all this material up, and you have to have somewhere to store it until you need it. Because we recently acquired a sawmill, we actually are starting to look for logs. Now we have some of our own timber, and we actually plan to buy some retail market logs that we have locally. But we're always talking to neighbors and just kind of keeping a bug in people's ears. And so today I'm actually gonna go take a quick look. I think there's 3 or 4 trees that a neighbor has that are actually in the way. They've got a field, I think, and when they're trying to plow the field, the tree sticks out too far. So they like the tree gone. Sounds like a perfect match for us. I mentioned it a second ago, but here's some of that metal roofing. We threw that on our battery box. Bam, perfect. That metal roofing, $0. I do want to lay to rest early the argument that nothing is free. You're correct. The point of this video is not to find something that is truly free, but to help folks see that there's many other ways to acquire materials to get started than to use money. That means you're going to have to use time, and we will not lie. This stuff is extremely time consuming. One of the reasons we didn't start our home the first few months when we moved here was because we were busy running around getting this materials, which was awesome, but it did keep us from starting the house. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily, but just realize that even if you're not trading money, you're probably going to be trading time. To put it in context, this rock grizzly that we created to help filter the soil that we already have instead of buying soil, just this grizzly probably has run us a little over $200 because we've got treated fir posts, we've got all this lumber, we've got the chain link fence and all the staples and everything to put it together. So this little grizzly cost about the same amount as that entire cabin. Ooh, almost forgot my gloves. One of the first things you learn living in the country is always make sure you have a pair of gloves with you. One of the first stops I wanted to make was to check out a tree that neighbor said was available. Don't really have my zoom lens on, but it's that tree right there. And it looks like it snapped off about there. You know what it looks like? It looks like that part of the tree is actually pretty valuable. This part I can't tell if it's just bowed because of the way it's laying or what, but that's probably only good enough for firewood. But that guy up there, I'll bet we could probably get something useful out of him. That's a huge secret that we have found to making good connections is windstorms and weather tends to generate a lot of kind of just refuse. And private property owners are like, oh, I have to get rid of all this junk, right? That blew down, knocked down, it's in the way. And if you have a chainsaw and you've got time, bam, you've got materials. It takes a little bit of labor, you've got to drive around, you've got to have a pickup or a trailer or something to haul it with. But we have found a tremendous amount of materials that literally are a nuisance to their owner, right? Crazy. This is one example. Same neighbor actually has a piece of, what would you call it? Agricultural land? I don't even know, a field. Let's call it a field. And they actually leased that out to somebody who plants hay or something in there. And as they were planting, they kept running into these trees with the tractor. And so he said, hey, if you want to get those trees, get them out of the way so these guys can do their job. So I'm gonna go take a look at those. Hey, I was just wondering if you knew where the trees were. Do you have any idea? I'm kind of lost now. I drove around a little bit and I don't see the ones he's talking about. Do you have any idea?
I think he said he talked about turning down a road.
Okay.
Please record your message after the beep.
It's Jesse. Hey, we're just trying to scout out those trees. Alyssa mentioned you had a couple that you needed taken down. I was trying to get kind of an idea about where all this work is that you wanted to have us do, the fencing. So I wanted to just chase you down and see if we can figure out exactly what trees those are. Anyway, if you give me a call back, I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to go about getting all this stuff done. So you have my number. Thanks. Talk soon. Bye. All right, so next, let's go take a look at this house that needs to be taken down.
This is what I'm talking about.
We don't ever judge something, we kind of take a look at it and try to make an assessment about what's valuable and what's not, you know?
This room,
Okay. This looks like maybe it's, it might actually be sheetrock, wouldn't it?
it's got metal roof, I don't know, but for building this outside shed,
Perfect.
all sheeted with plywood.
Yeah, it looks like it's got a good half-inch sheeting on them, probably. A lot of nails. That's always the
Oh
hard.
yeah, they used it plenty.
Wow, so this is a really great opportunity. It's not a very big structure, and but the windows are intact. It's actually got some trusses in there, which are in pretty good condition. And then it's got this large steel column, which looks like maybe they were planning on doing a spiral staircase maybe, and just never did. Lots of plywood. That's the nice thing about these buildings that were built, 30, 40, 50 years ago. They didn't have all this OSB stuff that we use today. So lots of plywood, a really great tin roof, wonderful condition. Is it going to be a lot of work to get it all apart? Sure. But, for the right person, this type of stuff, if you can just stockpile it, that way if you ever need to build a little outbuilding or a shed or a wood shed or anything like that, you have the materials. And you're ready for this. He doesn't want any money for this structure. All he's asking is that whoever takes it apart reasonably leave the area tidy and just kind of put things in one spot so that somebody with an excavator can come and pick it up and haul what's left to the dump. One thing I want to share about these types of relationships is that you're not going to find stuff like this on Craigslist. This is kind of a weird comment, but I'm just going to make it anyway. One of the reasons that Alyssa and I bought the land that we bought is because it was available on the market. It was available through a realtor. But we know that in areas like where we live in Idaho, the best land is not available through a realtor. People here take a lot of care who they build relationships with, and it matters to them a lot who their neighbors are. And so one of the reasons we bought this land was so we could just get here, build a home and get situated. But we were hoping that by doing that, we would be able to build relationships with people who are living here and who own the land. And that way, when there's good land available, it's never going to find its way onto the real estate market. You have those contacts and those relationships that you can use to buy very desirable land. This is one of those examples. There's no land for sale here. But the reason this opportunity even came our way is because we didn't just buy land and develop it. We built relationships along the way with neighbors who've been here for 50, 60, 70 years. This gentleman was actually born here. He's 76 tomorrow. That's a lot of connections. The other nice thing is these folks are usually not in a hurry. They're not trying to burn this thing to the ground. They know that a lot of people don't have money or that money is a struggle for them, and they want to help those people. They're not interested in helping people who are lazy. They're interested in helping people who want to help themselves, but maybe for whatever reason don't have a lot of money. And so this opportunity will be here whenever we're good and ready to take care of it. So I'm going to check back with him probably in a month or two and see if we can either decide if we want to use these materials, or maybe we want to try to pass it on, find somebody else in the area who can use the materials themselves. So I got a call from our neighbor who has those two trees that I couldn't really find. So I'm gonna go back and just kind of take another closer look at them and see what we need to do to get those off his property. So talking to that neighbor, he actually asked a favor in exchange for these trees. These branches, you can see they're kind of hanging out over the road. He asked if we could just cut some of those back so when you try to get your rig through here, you aren't running into those branches. There's a couple more right here just kind of sticking out in the road. And that's just a really nice thing that we can do for the neighbor to help keep his property maintained, and then in exchange for some great raw materials. All right, yeah, so this tree right here, you can see they've been hitting it with equipment. And then This one's not too big, but he needs to be taken down too. He's just a little larch tree. So they've been banging into it, and that might kill the tree anyway, might hurt it. So cool. Well, they'll probably use that guy for a post. He looks like he's nice and slender and straight. So hopefully you enjoyed some of these things. You know, not everybody's looking to live like this, and we like sharing these videos with other people anyway because it's just fun. The things that we're learning, we had no idea that all this stuff was available and kind of just around us. And for those folks who are thinking about living like this, we hope this helps you kind of find things that are right in front of you. You know, gems that are available that you might not know to look for. So thanks for joining us. I've got to get to work on some of our solar projects and check with Alyssa. Our to-do list is just never ending. We'll see you next time. That's kind of funny. That's probably the first time in I don't know how long I haven't actually needed my gloves for over 2 hours.
Look at this. Oh my goodness.
Going down? You know how you got up there? Yeah, you do.